Right guys, it's all aboard here and I'm currently off to Hammersmith Dock to meet with Freddie Graham, who's living on a houseboat at the moment actually. I mean, Fred's a real free-spirited guy, has a lot of interesting takes on life, which I find really interesting. And yeah, I'm very fortunate to call him a friend as well. He's a very talented artist, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing where this chat's going to go. Whee. Take one, and the only take. That's rock and roll. Brilliant. So I'm here with All Aboard and Freddie Graham. Well, welcome to All Aboard, Fred.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
So you are all aboard.
I am all aboard. So welcome to Fred's houseboat, I suppose. Basically, the way the series works is we All Aboard go around to different spots around London for the time being, and it's going to be somewhere where it reminisces with the artist, a place that means something to them. So why have we come here, Fred?
Well, it's where I live. So I've been living for the past month or so, yeah, it's pretty magical spot. I'm really loving it. It's nice to be by the river, or on the river, in fact.
I mean, have you found any inspiration from being here?
Yeah, it definitely has heightened my creativity and my creative mindset. Literally, like the first day, I moved here in the evening. The next day, I was just playing around on the guitar and a tune popped into my head pretty immediately. So yeah, definitely makes a big difference where
is that a tune that might be on the cards as well?
Yes, it is. It's definitely on the way. It's in the makings. A lot of it's recorded. I'm just sort of finishing off some mixing and mastering at the moment, but yeah, it's definitely.
Well, I'm very much looking forward.
Something new is on the way. Let's just say that.
Ooh. Well, look, I should let everyone know that me and Fred have probably known each other for around 13 years or so. So I'm lucky to, whilst also interviewing him, I'm also lucky to call him a very close mate of mine as well. So it's quite fun to be able to combine it. But I thought probably the best place to start, and for me, looking at Fred as a whole and his whole aesthetic, his musical taste, we've got some nice birds flying over.
Getting crazy.
I feel like his latest release in the music, I feel perhaps musically might say a bit to the direction he's trying to go into, but also from watching the music video, I feel that music video as a whole sort of gives away the exact kind of person Fred is and maybe what he values as well.
Yeah, it definitely feels a lot more cohesive in the sound that I've been sort of gradually getting closer towards. And yeah, that music video, I didn't really know what it would add to begin with. I just thought it felt like the right thing, and it felt like a nice thing to do would be to create a music video. But I didn't realize until as it's sort of in the middle of it how much it would add to not just the song and sort of contextualizing the song a bit more and making the lyrics start to make a bit more sense, but also sort of giving more of an insight into how my mind works and how my sort of lens, the view I have of the world. I think it definitely gives more an insight into who I am as a person. So,
I mean, it's quite a cool concept in itself, the video, isn't it?
It was, yeah. The concept just sort of made sense. It was kind of what I always wanted, and then I was working with two friends of mine, Misty and Mariana, who really brought it to life in the shots they took and the movement they helped me create, and the dancing and where we were. And it was just a really fun process doing it with other people as well, and just sort of having a laugh and playing around with it a bit, enjoying it.
I suppose the whole journey towards from city to countryside almost says a lot about you as a person in general as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's I grew up in the countryside. Grew up down in Hampshire, again by a river, right next to the river. A lot of woodland, and yeah, the natural world really informs. Again, it really informs my creative process as well. A lot of the lyrics I write are about the natural world, or they're sort of using nature as a metaphor into my own mind and how I see things again. And yeah, it definitely inspires what I do. And in that album, there are quite a lot of natural sound recordings, again, from a lot of them from back home.
How might have you captured them in the first place? Like where have they come from? Like wood, trees?
Yeah, so the at the end, at the beginning and the end of In the Music, which is the first track, they were taken from a sound recording I did a while ago out in the woods. I went and captured the dawn chorus, actually for a different project I was doing, for an electroacoustic project. And so yeah, I got up really early. I think it must have been, probably was 5 a.m. or something. Went out to this big woodland and just sat there with my field recorder. Just the most, dawn chorus is one of the most incredible sounds out there in the world. I think it's just
Dawn
so
chorus?
magical. The dawn chorus.
How would you just describe the dawn chorus?
Dawn chorus is at a particular time of year when the natural world is very competitive, because all the birds are looking for a mate and they're looking for space, and they will, as the dawn rises, they will give off the most amazing bird song. They're just all shouting and singing, and it's really, really loud, and it comes from everywhere. If you're in the right place, if you're in the woods, it will come from all around you, and it's a really amazing, immersive sound. So
I suppose not to the same level, but I suppose you've got a fair bit of that there here yourself.
yeah, we just heard some flying over.
Yeah, just heard some flying.
Different birds, I guess, but these ones, a lot of gulls, geese, swans. Got some grebes, coots, moorhens. There's all sorts over here. Yeah, no, it's lovely.
And
makes a big difference.
I mean, in the music, lyrically, I mean, where I know that was probably a song you had for a couple of years, and you were sort of working out how best to portray it. I mean, how did that song come about?
Got to try and remember the earliest form it took, but yeah, again, it came from just strumming around on the guitar, which guitar is sort of quite a recent instrument to me, but because I'm not as good at it as some of the other stuff I do, it means I'm a bit more limited in what I can create. So I've actually got less chords to work with and less chord voicings and stuff like that. So it actually
puts a box around, which almost can be useful in a way.
Yeah, it's sort of, because all creativity is sort of enhanced when you're given less options. And so, again, it started with just a couple of chords. In the music, it really came from an experience I had where I was just jamming with some friends, actually. We were just playing around, completely different type of music. But I had this sudden realization that, for me, like how powerful music is to my life, my personal life. And it was this realization that everything I need almost is within the music, and it was just a moment I really first took on board how important music is to me, and how I wanted to make it more of a part of my life. It's always been sort of the biggest part of my life, but I wanted to make it more, and that's why I decided.
I mean, do you often find that your music can almost be the best way that you find to express yourself as a person?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, music and writing as well, and poetry. Poetry I find is particularly useful when because there's a lot of stages to song creation and music. Like it takes a lot more effort compared to poetry, where you can just sit down with a pad of paper and just write whatever's on your mind. And whereas with music, there's a lot more thought that has to go into it, I'd say, personally. And but yeah, music's always definitely been a way to express myself, and as it is for everyone, I'd say.
Yeah.
If you create music, you know that it's a powerful tool of self-expression. So.
And then looking at, so you mentioned the poetry as well, which I suppose can tie into your lyric writing. How, just in general, how might your lyrics come about? Do you tend to have your strumming some chords and the lyrics come, or could it be you're walking through the woods, or, you know, how might it come?
Yeah, lyrics for me often come towards the end of the music creation. Quite often it's the chords that will come first, and I'll work on them, and melodies will start to come in my head, and I'll start off by just using la or humming or anything that doesn't have any lyrics. And then after a while, that just the emotions I'm creating from purely the sound will start to bring up some of the words I want to use, and I'll write some of those down. And then after that, I'll really sit down and start thinking a lot more about how the lyrics will fit into the song.
So it starts with the melody. You get an idea of how the melody sounds to give you an idea of where the lyrics might go.
Yeah, and that helps as well, because it means I'm not writing loads of lyrics only to find that they're not going to fit in with the rhythm of the song, or so it just.
So I mean, with your other single from the indie music release, Elated Sunset, was that you heard the way the music sounded, and that sort of sprung to your mind that maybe should be sunset involved within the lyrics?
So that one was actually slightly different in that I created that in a different way to what I usually would. In that came from just a pure feeling. It came from the feeling you have when you're witnessing a sunset and just sort of basking in it. And after that, it made me think, well, what brings that feeling? And it's quite often the people you're with. Obviously, it's the visual scenario where you are, but it's also what you're doing. Like, you might be dancing, you might be singing. It's kind of just a joyful, I don't know what the word is,
Uplift.
just sort of uplifting, like sort of just being there in such a magical, natural moment was the feeling that it came from. And then after that, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to talk about the sunset and how it's that elated feeling where you feel just so uplifted. Yeah.
Uplifted, yeah. Well, looking, I mean, loosely at Elated Sunset and maybe towards some of the other musical ventures you do with DJing, I suppose that song's got some of your more electronic influence in that. I suppose I can see from your music, there's a lot of different genres that you like to use and blend together. Perhaps some lean towards more of a DJ side, some to more acoustic. I mean, is that something you consciously think about?
Yeah, so it's something I've almost struggled with for a long time, in that trying to work out what it is I actually want to focus on. And yeah, for a long time I've just kind of created whatever's come to me, and that means that it covers a very wide sort of genre base, and it can be quite hard to know sometimes where I actually want, which route I want to go down. But yeah, I feel like that release was the first time that I've sort of managed to bring each side a bit closer together, like the purely acoustic stuff and the very experimental, almost sort of glitchy electronic stuff I do. Sort of found a bit of a meeting point closer towards the middle. Having said that, I still definitely want to explore all these different genres, and
you don't want to limit yourself to one sound necessarily.
I don't, and for a while I thought I kind of had to. I thought that was what you had to do in order to build a fan base, and you need to have your specific sound and genre that people know you for. But I think it's actually more important to have a sort of a similar or cohesive vibe / sound behind it. That's the most important part. Like, you can have complete different genres and still have recognizable musical features within both. And if it's coming from the same place, from that artist who has he was sort of an individual, then that should be able to come across, which is what I'm still
Which is
working on. But
well, I suppose that comes back to the idea of, whilst music is something you're striving for as a career, at the end of the day, and you're trying to build a fan base, but at the end of the day, it's still something that you love doing in the first place, and limiting yourself off from certain musical styles because it might not be as commercial might almost limit your creativity in the first place, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are tons of artists out there who are sort of musical chameleons, and that they can do all sorts of projects. And a lot of them will create an alias, which is something I've thought about, but at the moment, as early on as I am, it is quite a lot of work to have a whole new alias, which you're building that up as well. So for now, I'm just Freddie Graham. Still Freddie Graham. Maybe one day.
Well, with your DJ ventures, you did have a successful. You co-founded a successful group, Apollo Sounds, back in Manchester as well.
Yeah.
How was that whole process working with other DJs to sort of create your own little Apollo world, I suppose?
Yeah. So it's something I've been getting in touch with the other boys from Apollo Sounds about, actually, because I'd love to get something going down in London. But yeah, those are really good times. It was really nice to find a group, and we started off just back in halls, and we all learnt to DJ there. That was back in, I don't know, 2020. 2020. And yeah, we gradually realised that we could move that on to something bigger and maybe a bit more professional. And we created Apollo Sounds. It was just a really nice way to bring everyone together and get people dancing, get people moving.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to do more of that type of stuff. And recently I've been exploring DJing with playing saxophone at the same time, which is harder than it looks. There's a lot of.
It's one of those you see you do it. Like, it looks easy.
Yeah, it's a lot of headspace trying to make sure you're moving on to the next track.
It's like working a few different minds at the same time.
Yeah, and you don't want the track to stop, but you want to get involved with the sax playing, so you're having a good time and you're immersed fully into it.
And think about the changes.
But you have got to be thinking all the time what's coming next. But no, that is good fun, and I want to be doing some more of that.
Yeah. I mean, saxophone is definitely. So I mean, Fred plays multiple instruments: piano, sings, guitar, produces. But I feel saxophone, from whenever I've seen you, when I see you playing saxophone, you can just see that's very much your happy place. That is completely comfortable, and often I feel you don't really have to even practice on it because it's just something that comes so naturally to you. You can sort of just. So I know you play for, is it Luca Firth?
Yeah.
Drivers.
Yeah.
Ignoring Izzy as well. All on the saxophone.
That's all on the sax.
I mean, do you enjoy playing for other artists as well and sort of accompanying them?
Absolutely, yeah. I think collaboration is a key part of any art creation. Sax kind of has always been my main instrument. It's the one I've sort of gravitated to most and find the easiest to play. So yeah, in a way, it does come quite naturally, and it's also just perhaps a bit more physical than the others. You're sort of physically blowing air through the instrument, and it's.
You feel you're working hard.
You're working your core, and you're working with your breath, and you can really. I just find the sound that I create, it just comes easier than some of the other instruments. And yeah, I just love it, and I particularly love improvising, and that's something I've just started doing more and more, is kind of leave behind the pre-composed music and just fully focus on just improvising live, and that's what I do with the other bands. I just play over live and just make things up, really.
I mean, when do you feel that transition for you as a musician sort of switch between possibly after you left school maybe and you felt you'd
Well, I've always improvised. It was my first sax teacher, great guy called Chuff, and he went straight into jazz, and obviously a big part of jazz is improvisation, and so that he always highlighted the importance of that, but as I sort of went through the grade system and stuff like that, I did a lot more scored music, and more into scales and sight reading, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that was kind of necessary for all the grade stuff. But coming out of it at the other end, I've sort of fully reverted back.
But I suppose learning all those scales and maybe more set ways of doing things has probably enabled you to do things on the saxophone you might have not been able to do before, do you feel?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely helps that, your technique and your fingering and how quickly you can move around things, and it makes these different links into your brain about what sounds good and how all these different chord structures fit together, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, maybe it's something you have to go through to come out the other side and then sort of leave behind again. But yeah.
I mean, with the improvisation, I've seen, I think with drivers who are a little bit more of a heavier sort of style, you've managed to almost blend guitar pedals with your saxophone as well.
Yeah, which, annoyingly, I've left some pedals behind, so I'm not currently using that setup. But yeah, I
in the past that has been
it's great fun. Yeah, and I'm gradually building up the pedals. I want to get a tremolo next.
What kind of effects might you bring on board?
At the moment, I've got like a pitch shifter, which you can create some pretty weird sounds with. You can create layers of saxes and do them up the octave, down the octave. I've got a delay pedal, which is probably the most important one because it just gives so much more space to the sax and the room, and it really opens it up and just makes it more powerful, really. And then what else have I got? I've got the preamp, which makes everything work. And then I did have a multi-effects pedal, which did quite a lot of different stuff, but I'm veering away from that because I want to have each individual pedal do its own thing. But yeah, I'd love to get
I suppose, is it getting do you try and get a blend between still keeping the sax sound as the core element, but just adding little nuances of each?
Yeah, it's not that dramatic yet, unless I got 50 more. It's reasonably subtle at the moment still, but we'll see.
Time will tell.
It'd be cool to get a distortion one as well. That'd be interesting. And obviously a looper. I use a looper as well, which is great.
Would you ever use a looper in a live setting as well?
Yeah, so I'd quite often use a looper with drivers. I'd use it in between songs to sort of fill in the gap whilst people are retuning or dropping their tuning.
Just like a general aesthetic.
Fill it with some interesting, slightly crazy sounds, which I love doing that.
Yeah.
It's sort of experimental. It's great. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose having known Fred for a long time, that it does help me know where some of his influences come from, and I suppose I feel maybe travel is something that might not be highlighted as much, but I feel you've had some experiences, like we've been lucky to go on some trips together, but also I know you were in Nepal maybe a year or so ago teaching kids music. I mean, as a musician in general, do you feel an experience like that has helped shape the way you see music?
I've always been very, very interested in other cultures and their relationship with sound and music, and it was something I studied and was really, really keen on at uni, is sort of uncovering a bit more
were you studying
what
at
these
uni?
different communities. Yeah, well, I studied music in my undergrad, and we talked a lot about, and I did a lot of modules on ethnomusicology, which is basically the study of sound and music in cultures and what it means to the cultures and what it means to their community and how that differs in different places across the world, which I just found.
Where might have you studied within those studies? Like which areas?
All over, really, all over the world. I mean, if I had to go into some specifics, we went into like the gamelan in Indonesia. We went into, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint one exactly because it's more about the theme behind it, and then you talk about specific communities relating to that theme rather than just covering one community. But it just, to me that's really important is to why music is important and why it means something to a community. And often the origin of that is that music is a community tool almost. It's a way where we can get the community together.
To gather in one place. I suppose that's why live music's so important. It gathers everyone together.
It gathers people together. It brings people together, which is, everyone knows that. That's why people love music, is they like to be among
Share
people. But you know, it can also be used to create to enter different states of consciousness. It's a very spiritual practice in a number of cultures and religions. I mean, you just have to look into Aborigines in Australia, and music is vital to their spiritual beliefs. And it's really interesting to find out why and what that means.
So looking specifically at your experience in Nepal, like just to give a like specific example maybe of what you're sort of talking about, how might that be relatable to what you're saying?
So yeah, Nepal is really interesting. I was out there teaching music and English and drama with a friend of mine, Tom, and we did that with Stay at School charity. And yeah, in relation to sound, obviously that was important as part of the teaching, as it was a really great tool when the language barrier was a little trickier. We could bring in the music, and that would it just breaks the language barrier. Everyone understands music and they understand rhythm, and that was a good way to introduce an idea, and then we could introduce some of the English language on top of that. But yeah, I mean, there were some amazing sounds out there as well. We went to a couple of Buddhist monasteries and were just blown away by the sound. There's a lot of mantra chanting, and I can't remember the name of all the instruments, but there's lots of bells and gongs and horns which are playing these really powerful notes. And I got some sound recordings out there which I've played around a bit with. I'm always listening into sound, and when I'm out and about, it's one of the things that most affects me is the sound, both in a positive and a negative way. Depends where you are.
I suppose like loud police cars flying by.
Police cars, I can't. I have to hold my ears. Tube.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Can't do it. I have to wear noise cancelling headphones. It constantly shocks me that some people are completely desensitized to it, but I guess
That's
I'm probably a bit more sensitized to it, I guess.
I suppose when you're out exploring, is that how do you tend to go like through your voice memos if you hear a particular sound and think how you can bring that into the music?
Yeah, I'll often get the voice recorder out. If there's a specific sound I want, I'll get out a proper microphone. But yeah. I mean, phone speakers aren't that bad anymore. Like you can get some pretty good voice recordings from them. But yeah, I've actually got a new project coming up. Don't want to give away too many details, but it involves just grabbing any sound from out there in the non-musical sound and turning it into something else. That's what I'm going to say for now, but that will be on the way.
I mean,
it's bubbling down there.
Just touching on that without you wanting to give too much away, I know Fred's also done some more, I suppose, commercial work almost for like the NFL, Qatar World Cup, and I think maybe the NFL one came about from, I suppose, trying to create content that feels true to yourself. and so you like use different sounds on a tube, if I'm
Yeah.
correct. How did that whole process work?
Yeah, so that was when I moved to London. Yeah, just one of the, again, as we were just saying, one of the sounds I was struck by was the sound of the tube and that scream it creates, which I really hate, but is also kind of captivating. And I really wanted to create something out of it. So yeah, I turned it into a little house track, a little house beat. And yeah, it was just quite a fun idea, and I thought people might find it quite funny or enjoy it in some way.
Yeah.
And then the NFL saw it and reached out to me and said, well, yeah, this is still not currently out there, but they wanted to work with me. So yeah,
It's a very cool sort of coincidence, I suppose,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Shows the. Yeah, I did think it'd be quite interesting, just looking into, I suppose, a bit more of the inner mind, I suppose, and maybe, perhaps, I know, like, you know, we've touched on how the countryside's quite a big aspect to your life, but I mean, and we've touched on it as well later on about perhaps more your like spiritual way of life, I suppose. Have you got any experiences perhaps from festivals or traveling or playing music that you feel really shaped you as a musician?
It's not something I've really thought about before, actually. I guess because it seems that music kind of shapes the way I see the world, because music is such an integral part of my life. I feel like it always is in some way. But if I had to try and think of some examples, I mean,
Have you had any festival examples?
Yeah, I had a very nice. I was at Boomtown last year. I was volunteering, doing some stewarding. One of the highlights of that was definitely Damian Marley. And yeah, I was just sitting down on the hill, doing some meditation, just listening to Damian Marley doing his thing. And that was definitely a very, very special moment. And I remember hearing someone beside me saying, he's got the spirit of Bob in him, which was true, to be honest. You definitely felt some sort of magnetism behind him and the way he expresses his voice, which was just, yeah, very, very magical. So yeah, that was definitely.
And that experience, so volunteering at Boomtown, so you did that by yourself, I suppose. So is that something, whilst you do like to do a lot of things with a lot of friends, is that also something where you like to do things by yourself as well? Do you feel that teaches you a lot?
Yeah, there's a lot of things I like to do by myself. It's potentially a bit more maybe independent-willed than some other people I know, and that's just, you know, people just work in different ways. And one of the things I need is my own space and my own time to sort of think about things and process things, which I sort of need those moments to myself and those moments alone with the natural world as well. But actually, one of the, going back to that moment at Boomtown, actually one of the special things was that although I had that moment to myself, when I then sort of came out of the meditation, the thing I wanted to do was to go into the crowd and just sort of start interacting with people and saying hi. And dancing. It
gave you an energy boost almost.
Yeah, I definitely get an energy boost from sort of those moments to myself, and then once I've found that place of calm, I can then go out and you know, meet new people or see old friends or new friends or whatever it is. So yeah, it's definitely a balance between having space to myself and sharing those moments with other people.
And sort of, as we're sort of looking to wrap this up a little bit, and we touched on you teaching music in the pool, you're also doing some teaching at the moment. music and is it music technology in schools?
Music
I mean,
technology, yeah.
just as a sort of, for those who love music, what advice might you give? I know perhaps not all of them love music, the kids you're teaching, but like, what advice might you try and push on as just a general idea?
Yeah, I mean, advice is a tricky one. I feel like each time I give a piece of advice, it sort of changes within the next month. I'm like, why did I say that?
So I don't believe that anymore.
I don't mean that. But at the moment, my advice would be, yeah, just to explore and to play with the sound and the music.
What,
and
experiment?
Yeah, experiment and play and have fun with it and see where that naturally takes you, rather than trying to put some sort of template on what it is you're doing and trying to put some sort of big restriction on the path you want to go down. Just to be open with it and try out new things, and because I think that's how you really get into a nice state with your music creation.
And you find new things and new ideas that you might not necessarily have come to unless you've tried to find them, almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then hopefully we'll be catching you playing live in London 2025 potentially.
Yes.
As Freddie Graham.
As Freddie Graham.
I know that there's a lot of moving parts in terms of you wanting to somehow bring together your acoustic nature with your more electronic side, and also adding sax on. Is that something you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's the basis of it is there. I have done a live lounge with that as Freddie Graham, and I had a friend of mine, a drummer, come on for that, and hopefully I'll expand that band a bit more, because I've been doing so much live stuff for a long time, but I've never actually performed as Freddie Graham, even though I've got a fair amount of music up out there now on streaming sites and stuff. There's I haven't performed yet as Freddie Graham, which is pretty crazy, but I've just been delaying it for some reason in my head, and as you say, trying to work out.
Well, I suppose as
such a
not perfectionist isn't the word, but I suppose when it's ready, it will suddenly kickstart off. I think.
Yeah. There's definitely an element of perfectionism in there. I'd say. I want to get it right, and it's maybe I've made it bigger than it should be now, but at some point this year. It will happen.
It will happen.
We'll
make sure everyone stays tuned. Stay tuned. Well, listen, Fred, I won't take any more of your time on this very lovely day.
Quite simply glorious.
Quite simply glorious. I'm quite enjoying just sitting here having a chat as well. But look, this has been All Aboard and Freddie Graham. Awesome. Cheers, Fred.
Cheers, bro. All aboard.
All aboard. And we're out.